Real business cycle (RBC) theory is a prominent class of macroeconomic models within the new classical school of thought. Developed primarily by Finn Kydland and Edward Prescott in the early 1980s, it revolutionized macroeconomics by attempting to explain business cycle fluctuations using purely real factors, in contrast to earlier theories that emphasized nominal monetary shocks or demand-side disturbances. Core assumptions and mechanisms. RBC theory posits that business cycles are essentially the efficient response of an economy to significant, unexpected changes in the real economic environment, primarily technological shocks. These shocks are broadly defined and can include 1. Technological advancements. Positive shocks like new inventions, improved production processes, or better management techniques increase productivity. 2. Resource availability. Changes in the availability of natural resources, e.g., discovery of new oil fields, or conversely, a major drought or energy price spike. 3. Government policies. Changes in regulations or tax policies that affect incentives for production and investment. Key assumptions underpinning the RBC framework include rational expectations. Economic agents, households and firms, are rational and form expectations about the future consistent with the true model of the economy. They make optimal decisions to maximize their utility, households or profits, firms, over their lifetime. Perfect competition and flexible prices wages. All markets are perfectly competitive, and prices and wages are perfectly flexible, adjusting instantly to clear markets. This means there are no sticky prices or wages, and thus no involuntary unemployment in the traditional sense. Fluctuations in employment are seen as voluntary responses to changes in real wages and the desirability of working versus leisure. Real shocks as primary drivers. Fluctuations in economic activity are driven by real supply-side shocks, mainly to total factor productivity, TFP. Nominal shocks, like changes in the money supply, are considered irrelevant to real economic variables, adhering to the principle of money neutrality. Intertemporal substitution. Agents can substitute consumption and leisure across time. For example, if a positive technology shock makes working more productive today, leading to higher real wages, individuals might choose to work more and consume more now, postponing leisure to the future. This mechanism helps explain why employment and output fluctuate in response to real shocks. Dynamic Stochastic General Equilibrium (DSGE) framework. RBC models are built using DSGE models, which provide a microfounded, general equilibrium framework. This means that all economic decisions are derived from the optimizing behavior of individuals and firms, and all markets are assumed to clear. How it explains business cycles. Imagine a positive technology shock. This shock increases the productivity of capital and labor, making it more profitable for firms to produce and more attractive for individuals to work. 1. Increase productivity. Firms respond by increasing investment and hiring more labor. 2. Higher real wages and returns to capital. The increased productivity translates into higher real wages due to higher marginal product of labor and higher returns on capital. 3. Intertemporal substitution of leisure. Individuals, observing the higher real wages, optimally choose to work more and consume more, substituting away from leisure. 4. Increased investment. Higher returns to capital encourage firms and households to save and invest more. 5. Economic expansion. This leads to an increase in aggregate supply, output, and employment, characterizing an economic boom. Conversely, a negative technology shock, e.g., a sudden increase in energy prices, a natural disaster, or a decline in innovation, would have the opposite effects, leading to a recession. In this view, a recession is not a market failure, but an optimal response to a reduction in productive capacity. Strengths of real business cycle theory. 1. Microfoundations. RBC models are rigorously built from basic principles of optimizing behavior by individuals and firms, making them internally consistent and providing a strong theoretical basis for macroeconomic analysis. This contrasts with earlier Keynesian models that were often criticized for lacking explicit microeconomic foundations. 2. Consistency with observed regularities. RBC models can replicate many empirical regularities of business cycles, such as the procyclicality of consumption, investment, and employment, and the countercyclicality of real wages, though the latter is debated. 3. Emphasis on supply-side factors. It highlights the importance of supply-side factors, particularly technology and productivity, in driving long-term economic growth and short-term fluctuations, which was often downplayed in purely demand-driven theories. 4. Policy implications. By suggesting that business cycles are efficient responses to real shocks, RBC theory implies that active government intervention, e.g., through monetary or fiscal policy to smooth cycles, may be unnecessary or even counterproductive, as it could distort optimal responses. This aligns with a more laissez-faire approach to economic policy. 5. Framework for DSGE models. RBC theory laid the groundwork for the development of modern DSGE models, which are now widely used in central banks and academic institutions for policy analysis and forecasting. Weaknesses and criticisms. Despite its intellectual contributions, RBC theory has faced significant criticisms. 1. Nature and size of technology shocks. Source of shocks. The primary criticism is the reliance on large, unpredictable technological shocks as the sole or dominant cause of business cycles. Critics argue that it's difficult to identify specific, large technological setbacks that correspond to every major recession, e.g., what technological regression caused the Great Depression or the 2008 financial crisis. Sole or residual. RBC models often rely on the sole or residual, total factor productivity, as a measure of technology. However, the residual is a measure of our ignorance and can pick up many factors other than pure technological progress, such as changes in capacity utilization, measurement errors, or unobserved factors. 2. Voluntary unemployment. The assumption that all unemployment is voluntary, due to individuals choosing leisure over work in response to lower real wages, is highly contentious. It struggles to explain the large-scale involuntary unemployment observed during deep recessions and depressions. The idea that 25% unemployment during the Great Depression was a mass vacation is widely seen as implausible. 3. Exclusion of nominal shocks and money neutrality. RBC theory largely dismisses the role of monetary policy and nominal rigidities, sticky prices wages, in explaining business cycles. This contradicts a significant body of empirical evidence suggesting that monetary policy can have real effects, especially in the short run, and that nominal shocks often precede and accompany recessions. 4. Real wage procyclicality. RBC models predict that real wages should be procyclical, rise in booms, fall in recessions. While some evidence supports this, other empirical studies show that real wages are often acyclical, or even slightly countercyclical, or that their movements are too small to explain large employment fluctuations solely through intertemporal substitution. 5. Lack of financial sector representation. Early RBC models largely ignored the financial sector, making them ill-equipped to explain financial crises and their profound impact on the real economy, as seen in 2008. While later DSGE models incorporated financial frictions, this was a significant initial oversight. 6. Difficulty with policy relevance. If business cycles are efficient, optimal responses, then there is little role for stabilization policy, which many economists and policymakers find difficult to accept given the clear social costs of recessions. In conclusion, real business cycle theory represented a significant paradigm shift in macroeconomics, emphasizing micro-foundations, rational expectations, and the importance of supply-side factors. It pushed the boundaries of macroeconomic modeling and led to the widespread adoption of DSGE frameworks. However, its strong assumptions, particularly concerning the nature of shocks and the voluntary nature of unemployment, have made it a subject of ongoing debate and have spurred the development of alternative models, such as New Keynesian economics, which incorporate elements of both RBC and traditional Keynesian ideas.